Małgorzata Wypych, CEO, Mental Health Center. Hello, Małgorzata. How are you today?
Hello, Łukasz. I'm great. And how are you doing?
Great. So far, so good. Mental health crisis. We are going to talk about something rather serious, more specifically, how to spot an employee in a mental health crisis situation. So I'll do my best to give all the time we have here to you. Let's start with that. What challenges are we likely to come across when doing our best to spot, to recognize an employee in a mental health crisis?
Yes, I think that there are a few problems that we have to mention. And first problem is that research shows that 50% of people will never talk about their mental issues, emotional or psychological problems. So we can kind of, at the beginning, exclude 50% of employees when it comes to them talking to us about their problems. Second problem is that there are people who have mental problems, but they're highly functioning. So they may go through something. We may not even know about it. They may be already in psychotherapy or even on drugs, but they will have no issues with work performance or social behaviors at work because they are highly functioning. So this is a good side of the story because it means that if I cannot spot anything, it doesn't exist for me. Yeah. So for managers, only when we are able to see something, that's the issue to be addressed. So when it comes to spotting problems, my experience is, and I have trained like more than 5,000 managers already. They do not have problems with mentioning what kind of changes in behaviors may be a symptom of a problem. So they are really good. So you all guys who are listening, you are really good at spotting problems, which may be like changes in behavior or in productivity, mistakes, lack of attention during the meetings, emotional outbursts, social isolation, unusual sick leaves as well. So there is a bunch of symptoms that are very universal and we don't have to know what is behind. We just have to be sensitive that something is different than usual with our employee. And there is
Can you give
another
us
issue.
examples of symptoms,
Yes.
perhaps, Markosha? Could you please give us examples of symptoms? Because as you mentioned yourself, some of those employees are high-functioning individuals, which makes it more difficult in some instances to spot those challenges. What are they?
So basically, whatever problem people are facing, whether it's long-term depression or a crisis due to some life changes or losses, people are also in chronic stress and they have lower level of energy. So they are unable to take decisions. They are not so attentive during the meeting. So they lose attention and sometimes they ask you to repeat the question because they cannot follow the discussion. They self-neglect. So sometimes there are like physical changes in how they look. Sometimes they have the same clothes few days in a row. They stop going to the barber or they just look tired. Sometimes it's overreaction when it comes to emotions. So they have outbursts, they stop controlling their behaviors. Sometimes they are very withdrawn and they show nothing, like they don't bother. You give them even positive feedback and they just, shake their arms and what's up? Yeah, I don't care
Which
about
brings
positive.
me
Yes.
Thank you very much. Very interesting example. This brings me to really asking what's possibly on many of our audience members' mind now. How can you start a conversation with someone who may appear actually reluctant to talk to you, withdrawn? What are the pitfalls there?
It's good to use those common managerial skills. Like most of managers are taught how to give feedback, and good feedback starts from describing behaviors. So first we need to be honest when we start a conversation with someone because we've noticed changes in behavior. Just name it. Like, look, I've noticed something. You behave in a different way than usually. And I've noticed A, B, C, D. We just, label what we saw. And I'm concerned about what is behind. Do you want to talk about it? I'm here to listen. Yeah. So we cannot use labels like, I suspect you have depression. Yeah. We cannot use labels. We just name changes in behaviors.
Doesn't it increase a sense of exposure if you do that?
Exposure of employee in crisis, you mean?
Yes, in the sense, because you've just said that they are quite deliberate in hiding their inner life, so to say, especially when it's so tough and challenging in so many respects. So the
Yeah.
moment you give names to these things, it may be increasing the vulnerability.
Yeah, but many times when people are in crisis, they are sending some signals, and if your behavior has
Mhm.
changed, it's non-verbal communication. So you are already
Mhm.
sending the message. Many people have those, everyday complaints that they are tired, that they feel lonely, and we say, "Oh, come on, everyone has problems," so we ignore complaining, which is already a symptom. Then a lot of people in crisis, they sort of regret that they have this image of a strong person. Because when you are a
Mhm.
strong person outside, no one suspects that you can have problems. And then when you are asked about it, many people feel relief that, okay, maybe people think I'm strong, but they really sense that it might be the opposition. And many people have a problem with sharing what they are going through because they think they will be a burden. So I don't
Mhm.
want to, share my problems with other people. I don't want other people to feel bad about me having problems. So when you approach them, they feel relief that someone has noticed that they are going through something. So I wouldn't bother about that it's exposure. Yeah, it is. And if you are asking someone, look, I've noticed that you behave in a different way. I'm bothered. I'm concerned about you. I'm worried. I don't know what is behind. Do you want to talk about it? You give them the choice to refuse as well. Yeah, they may say no, everything
Mhm.
is fine, and then we don't push. We need to respect that they put this border and they don't want to talk about it. But
What
like
you're
opening the doors, it's our goal.
Mhm. What you're saying, Małgorzata, is that we should be perhaps a lot more careful looking for those signals, because when you look at them in isolation, they may not be saying much, but you should be able to bring them together and interpret it as a collective signal, so to say. Please tell me, because many people
I
find
wouldn't
it
wait.
difficult to.
I wouldn't wait
Yeah,
for our profile. Actually, what I would do is
exactly.
would respond to first signals, maybe even one that someone is
Mhm.
overtired, and this
Yes.
should grab our attention. That you look tired. Is it anything happening in your life? Maybe you are not sleeping enough, or maybe you have different problems. If you want to talk, I'm here to listen. Yeah. So I wouldn't wait till
Which
all the syndrome will develop.
That's a very important message, Małgorzata. That brings me to my next question, because many people may find it intuitively difficult to understand the borderline where the responsibility or the support of the organization comes and when it stops. Where's the borderline there?
Mhm. So I think there are three things to mention. First, the first limit, first border is what I'm able to do as a manager on my position. If I know about the problem, it not always leads to to helping. Sometimes people just want to share, and sometimes people who are coping with grief, for example, or depression, they find the workplace as a safe zone for them. So they don't want any changes. They don't expect any additional extra help. So if we support people and we offer what we can as a manager, like lowering expectations for some time or offering elastic time hours or more day offs on demand, or just adapting somehow the teamwork to someone's in the crisis, what is in your hand as a manager, this is your limit. And then we have the
Mhm.
second, I would say, stage, which would be what organization expects. If you want to have a good atmosphere and people who are emotionally engaged in work, in relationships, we also need to take care about mental and emotional state. So also like on time, a few times a month, asking your employee, how are you doing? Are you progressing on your psychotherapy if you know that the person is in psychotherapy? So doing those catch-ups would be a nice gesture. But I don't have to jump into someone's private life. I don't have to be available on phone after working hours, because the responsibility of mental health is in the hands of your employee who has a crisis. This is the person who
Mhm.
holds the problem. Yeah, so as a manager, you do what is in your hands, in your decisions to support this employee. But what the person does in private life, it's his her issue. So we support them at work. But there is one moment that we have to cross that limit, and this is the third issue I wanted to mention: when the life is on threat. So when people start talking about suicidal thoughts, then I would say no limits. We have, civil responsibility to react in this situation, and to really motivate the employee to look for professional support. And sometimes there are moments that we need to call an ambulance, so this is the moment that we are crossing those limits, but still we just have someone's life on threat.
Mm-hmm. Really makes me want to ask you a lot more questions, but we don't have that much time. Małgorzata, if we could just summarize, because I understand it's not easy to spot someone who tries to hide their inner pain, so to say. So we talked about the responsibility of managers there and where it ends when you can see, for instance, clear signals of suicidal thoughts. But if you were to give us like top 3 practical tips, what to do as a manager and how to improve your skill set, perhaps, to be better detecting those states of mind, so to say. How would you self-improve? Imagine you're a manager and you really genuinely want to recognize those situations better and not just dismiss it as none of your responsibility. How to self-train, self-improve?
Oh, I recommend our trainings in mental health centers, so you can improve learning with us. But I think that sending the message to managers that you can improve, it's just a big responsibility. I think that there are few actors. There is all organization, and changing a culture, lowering the taboo, rising the knowledge of people, how many people struggle, so people have more audacity to talk about that. Yeah, so it's not only in managers' hands. Yeah, so we have a culture and we have to educate people and create more open environment. Then we have employees who also are responsible for themselves. And if I struggle with something, and if it impacts my work or motivation, or I cannot get up from bed and I have to do pep talk to convince myself to go to work, this is a moment that I should raise it with my manager. And then we have managers. Yeah, so managers are not the only one responsible for that. And then, to my knowledge, it's not an issue to recognize that someone is struggling if I know my employees. So it's pretty obvious when people are in the office, and we can make a profile of typical behaviors, and when the behavior is changed, ask about it. But when people work remotely, it's not so easy. So actually open communication: how are you doing? Is there anything you're struggling with? Knowing a little bit about the private lives of our employees, so they come with those issues, that would create more safe space for people to open up.
I really wish we had more time to talk about it. But then again, Mental Health Center is conducting all kinds of webinars, I'm sure, also instructing teams and managers how to go about it.
And trainings, yeah.
And training. I would say in conclusion that it's so easy to say none of my business. So I guess the key message of our conversation here would be careful. If you really want to be inclusive, be careful how you use this sentence, none of my business. And if you're building a truly inclusive team, make sure you really know the people you work with in the most cordial sense of the word. Thank you, Małgorzata. It's been a pleasure to have you with us, as always.
Thank you very much.